I'd like to invite now, our next speaker is Kay Cooke. She's based in North England, where she runs the Managing Excellence Group. With a long passion for teaching and learning, Kay is a diverse career, and she's worked nationally and internationally in many sectors. She's a member of the Society of NLP, the education team, and she's part of the assistant team supporting Richard Bandler in his trainings. Just to give you an idea, for example, Kay, Steve, for example, he's part of the assisting team. So he'll be here this weekend with the Get the Life You Want. And that's what they do. People that have trained with us come and assist. And the reason they assist is because they're passionate about what we do, but they carry on learning. So Kay's part of the team as well. Kay's creativity is thinking out of the box. She's got passion for working with young people. And she drives a project she's going to be talking today, which is Happy Brain. So I want you all, please, to welcome Kay. Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's lovely to be here. Really excited. There's so many things that I would really like to talk to you about. The passionate feelings, my soapbox about working with young people. A massive amount of the work I do, doesn't matter whether it's, I've got to do for there. Doesn't matter whether it's with people in the boardroom or people who are running nurseries. The single thing that people ask for is a little thing called resilience. It seems to be the secret, the magical word. How do we get a more resilient society? It's a question that I often ask myself. And it's a question that drives the Happy Brain project that I'm about to talk to you about, to explain how working with younger people may actually feed through to a much more powerful and resilient society, where instead of having to put a sticking plaster over a problem, we actually get in at a foundational level and change the mindset of next generation thinking. Richard Bandler says, you've got a machine inside your head. He says we need to learn how to use it deliberately, on purpose, to think on purpose. He says that before teaching information, we must teach strategy. And it's something that's already been alluded to this morning. It is about process. And wouldn't it be interesting, just for the next 20 minutes, to think through only process? What are the processes that set up the best possible outcome for clear thinking? Einstein has said to one of his quotes is, make everything as simple as possible and no simpler. And that's absolutely what I have done while creating the Happy Brain project. Most of the work that I've done is, how many of you here have done some NLP training, by the way? Oh, cool. Okay, so I'm going to use some NLP terms. A lot of the drivers for Happy Brain comes from me running my own timeline back. Maybe you can think this way too. Running the timeline back to myself, yourselves, is a much earlier version. What did I need to know? What did I need to know as a child, as a teenager, in my 20s, as a parent, as a step-parent, as a teacher? What did I need to know then? Find that information and feed it forward so that I can feed it into the future work. So I'm going to talk to you a tiny little bit, about a couple of case studies with full permissions to use them for educational purposes that I think will explain quite succinctly the work that we do. So here we have Happy Brain. I think that's quite self-explanatory, really, isn't it? Happy Brain. And it is about that investment in at the very beginning so that we get a much better quality of next generation thinking. Fortunately, and I've spoken to a number of you already this morning, and those of you in education know that one of the biggest obstacles is money. And I was very lucky 5 years ago to have some funding through Creative Partnerships, which unfortunately no longer exists. And it was about let's take creativity into the classroom. Working with the kids was a doddle. It was great. We built some fantastic resources. Working with teachers is takes a little bit more, and I've had some conversations with some of you this morning about, winning round the hearts and minds of this concept of investment at an early stage. So I was really lucky we got some investment. Happy Brain draws upon many models of philosophy, psychology, education, science. Its key to delivery is the work of Dr. Richard Bandler. The processes of NLP, the processes of NHR, which, by the way, was the most impactful training I ever did, and also DHE. And some of you will pick up, those of you in the know, will pick up some of those processes as I talk this morning. So here's a question. How many of you have done NHR training, by the way? Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Neurohypnotic repatterning. It's what Richard actually does. NLP was the foundational work. It's what he actually does. Until I was in my early 40s, I had no idea that you could choose the state that you want to be in ahead of time. That you could actually choose and create the most powerful, the most resourceful state. And learning to do that is quite a magical process, and it's incredibly powerful. So here's the thing. If emotional state is absolutely key to learning, to optimizing learning, we want to be setting up this chemistry, this neurochemistry of acetylcholine for focus, of dopamine for motivation, of serotonin for calmness, oxytocin for feeling good, and so on and so on. We want this powerful mix inside the kids so that learning is instant, it's fast, it's accelerated. How do we do that? Well, here's a little photograph of some work that I was doing with a class in a school. And what the children were doing is they were choosing a little laminated smiley face, and they'd put it into the palm of their hands. And then I'd lead them through, using NHR processes, lead them through lots of really happy memories. So they were stacking in and in and into the palm of their hands all of these wonderful, magical emotions. And of course, those of you familiar with NLP or anchoring will know that little disc becomes a powerful resource to either touch or look at any point in time that they may need it. Now, one of the things that we also need to do, certainly in terms of generating oxytocin, is to create connectedness. So if you're having a shit day, you're having a bad day, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, Bernardo, sorry. If you're having a bad day, how can we use the people around? How can we set up resources so that everybody contributes to you having an off day? And the photograph on the right-hand side is an example of one process of doing that. So can you imagine, with a bit of theatre, a bit of drama, some magic wands, some glitter, that you've got a magic circle, and one by one, each of the children put into the circle all of their happy vibes, all of their magical, magical feelings, and they stack them all in there. Who would like to stand in there? But not too quickly. Not too fast, because it might be a little bit too powerful. You might learn too much too quickly. Oh my goodness, what would that be like? What would it be like if you could just dip your toe into it and immerse yourself in all of the powerful learning vibes of the whole class? Would that be useful? I think so. Interestingly, again, one of the obstacles to that exercise was the teacher saying, well, it's not magic, there are no rabbits. So what we've got up here is the very basic, most simple principles behind Happy Brain. Simplicity, resilience, and clarity. Not unlike some of the things that have already been spoken about this morning, actually. Simplicity, let's make everything as simple as possible. And based on triune brain theory, which is only one model, but it's a useful one for the purposes of education, your reptilian brain is only interested in one thing, and that is your survival, nothing else. And it'll do anything it needs to ensure that your basic needs, nutrition, water, good quality sleep, a whole range of really simple basic needs, it'll create strategies to achieve them. Of course, when it doesn't achieve those basic needs, what happens? We set off a fight, flight, freeze response. There is a fourth F, and it's fornication, but it's not appropriate for working with children. But when you think about it, what does a plant do when it's under stress? It goes to seed, needs to ensure the species survives. It's that primitive, it's that simple, that reptilian part of the brain. So that's the simplicity. What can activate that stress response, that fight, flight, freeze response? Sometimes it's really important to have, if you've got to leg it, if you've got to be safe, absolutely. But what happens if it's activated by a thought alone or a misinterpretation of incoming sensory data? So, which is where the mammalian brain kind of comes into its own. It's the land of our beliefs. It's the land of all of the memories that we've kind of connected to feelings. And if your senses are providing you with information and it's going into the mammalian brain, and your map of the world says, that furry eight-legged thing is scary, well, then you're going to trigger a fight, flight, freeze response, a stress response. So the key thing here is that the simple parts of your brain, the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, those very simple parts, when they are in harmony, we get really smart thinking. We can think clearly on purpose. We can't do that when they're activated. And this is such a fundamental thing. Question to ask, what at a basic level is happening inside that person's brain? Here's a really cool activity that we do with children. We get them to draw a picture of their brain. It's a bit of a visualization to start with, and it's creative, it's metaphoric, it's a celebration of uniqueness. We get them to draw, and the girls tend to have heart compartments and friendship and love, and the boys have pulleys and levers and kind of things like that. Really interesting. It opens up a dialogue with the children to their unconscious minds. It also opens up a dialogue for me to work with them too, as I'm about to share with you. So my first case study is about a young lad called Adrian. And Adrian was 10 when I worked with him. He was 10 years old, and he'd been a little, I'm not allowed to swear, am I? So-and-so all day in the class that I was working with. He was non-compliant. He was just unhappy. He was out of sorts with himself and just with everything. He just, and the teacher told me that he'd been really good behaviour until year 2, and then something had happened. And now he was just a naughty boy, labelled the identity. So I thought, this is really cool. I kind of need to get into the deeper beliefs here and find out what's happening. So when the kids were busy drawing their happy brains, he sat. He just sat. And he just said, I can't do it. I can't do it. It was my first opportunity to come and sit alongside him and do some one-to-one work. And I said, oh, really cool. So, all right. Remember, we pace the reality of the person that we're with, so you can't do it. What until now has stopped you? Now, the until now trick works. It's part of the magic Milton language model. And nobody had asked him that question before, quite clearly, because his little eyes kind of went, did what we call a transderivational search. His eye accessing was, I've got to find that information. And then he turned and he looked at me in a kind of antagonistic way. And he said, I've got the devil in me. Cool. Now, I suppose you notice your response to that term, that many teachers, many parents, many people in his life would say, yes, you bloody have. Or, no, you haven't. No, honestly, you haven't. Neither of them is particularly helpful to him. So I said, cool. So where are you going to draw that little red guy? And nobody had asked him that question before. And again, he kind of went into this. And then he lurched forward and began to draw a little red guy. Pitchfork, lightning, black clouds. Little red guy, preceded by the word that, was also part of the magical language intervention. That, as opposed to this would bring the picture closer inside his head. That takes it away. It enables him to dissociate from it. By calling the little devil the little red guy, I was already beginning to reduce the images inside his head. It was little. It was red. Actually, it was a guy. Matter of fact. So he'd finished and he'd sort of turned and he looked at me as if to say, I told you so. I was, But where's the balancer? Everything's got an equal and an opposite. Everything's got a balancer. Where's the balancer? Presupposition that there is a balancer and he's going to find it. He hadn't been asked that question either before. And again, he kind of went back inside his head and he's searching, where's the balancer? And at the moment that he found the answer, his whole face lit up, his whole physiology illuminated. And at that point, I very gently tapped him on the shoulder, setting up a kinesthetic anchor, should I need it in the future. He said, a golden angel with golden sunshine beaming down. And that broke the spell. That enabled him, little Adrian, to become more resourceful, more resilient. He continued and created this lovely picture of a brain. You can see the balance compartments. And when he asked if he could show and tell, and when he shared his picture with the class at the end, and after he described the inner workings of his mind to the class, I asked the class and the teachers, who here has ever experienced something like that little red guy inside their minds? And a sea of hands rose up, and he flushed again. Spell was breaking. Now, one of the problems, and this is a 5-year-old case study, one of the problems back then was we weren't setting up follow-up resources. Something that we've been working on as time's gone on. So meet my 2 dogs, Molly and Oscar. When I'm working one-to-one with clients, private clients, I often invite them into what we call a play date. It's really crucial that the children that I work with do not believe that they're in therapy. They're either coming for coaching, just like you'd go to ballet coaching, or football coaching, or trampoline coaching. Or they're coming for a play date, and we play loads of crazy games and activities. Those are the processes that I use to engage their conscious minds while I work with their unconscious minds. Oscar, the Border Terrier on the right-hand side, was a crucial part of the next case study that I'd like to share with you briefly. How he was involved, you can read about in the fuller case studies. He was a real little buddy to a boy called Joel. Joel was 14, although he had an Asperger's assessment that put him 2 years chronologically earlier, socially and academically. But he was 14 when his distraught parents came to visit me, and they needed me to work with him because he'd become obsessed with inappropriate material on the internet. They didn't know what to do with him. They tried everything. Nothing worked. Could I work with him? In fact, the mum says, please just hypnotize him. I said, I think he's doing a pretty good job of that himself at the moment. So I worked with Joel and worked with Oscar, and we played all sorts of games. One of the games that I often use is snakes and ladders. Using a game of chance or novelty sets up some really smart neurochemistry. It gets dopamine and acetylcholine, which kind of get the brain in the right state for learning. It's also an opportunity if you land on a square that says ask, you ask a question. If you land on a square that says tell, then you tell something. So this is a great way of getting information. Transpired that 2 years previously, the poor lad was looking up his favourite music on the internet, and he'd accidentally discovered some hideous movies of middle-aged men kidnapping pretty young girls, wrapping them up in duct tape and cellophane, kidnapping them. And his little mind had interpreted that as, oh, that's what all grown-ups do. Oh, I'm going to have to do that. Oh, I might have to have it done to me. That was kind of how he'd interpreted it. So for 2 years, he'd terrorized his inner mind. He'd blown really big pictures of it inside his mind for 2 whole years. And I asked him, how did you come across this material? He said, oh, it's easy. I just love rap music. Get the ambiguity? Also, there's a music channel on YouTube called Warp Zone, which has some really cool music on it as well, so that just kind of messes it up a little bit more. He'd accidentally come across this, and of course his parents had run their movies forward, their submodalities huge, that their child was going to become an adult, misogynist, fetish kind of guy. So anyway, it was really straightforward because he told me his brain had become infected. And I said, well, you know what happens when your computer gets infected? Well, you run some antivirus, run some software to clean it up. Really cool, I know just how to do that. That's what I do. I can run an antivirus through your brain. Would you like to? Would you like to get rid of the trauma, the drama inside and have a clean slate and start again? Yeah. Got the motivation for it. So I had him sit in a special chair, and he loved Star Wars. I knew that because of the snakes and ladders information. So I had him sit in this power chair and in a closed, calm state. Imagine that he was inside this spaceship. He had the master controls all around him. The whole control panel was there. It was his to use. He had levers and pulleys. He described the smells, the tastes, the textures, the temperature, fully associated through all of his senses into being in the master control center. And when he was there, he had Oscar by his side, by the way. When he was there, he was in a swivel chair as well, incidentally. I had him draw up each of the images that had, in his mind, traumatized him, terrorized him. And one by one, he learned how to use his own controls to shrink, to fade. Submodality change for those NLPers in the room. to explode, to fling across the universe, to do whatever he wanted to do with them. He was in control. Until eventually he could no longer access those traumatizing memories. And he was disengaged from the code that had, until that point of time, deeply distressed him. So then we had to, and I'm running out of time now, so then we had to build up his resilience. And it was really essential that he believed that he was trustworthy, because one of the first things he told me was that he didn't think he was trustworthy and his parents didn't trust him. So we created a whole family support. The whole family support included some of these coaching ideas, not least reference to the Rosenthal experiment, which showed that the beliefs of the significant adults in a child's life are the biggest influencer. So if the parents and the family believed that it was all over, then it was much more likely that that would become embedded in his psyche. And interestingly, I contacted the parent. I saw this client about 12, 14 months ago, and contacted the mum recently and said, yeah, can I use it as a case study? We're now beginning to pull together some educational resources. That's what people are asking for. We've created some published case studies and some kit. Can I use this case study? Is that okay? Permission, please. And this is what she said. That was only 12 months ago. The work that we do with Happy Brain, oh, that's just some information. Come by our stand over there and talk to us. We've got information for you. The work that we do with Happy Brain is based on that big question. And it's a question I ask you to consider as I close now. What do you imagine our society can look like, can behave like, if we make that really significant investment in prevention rather than have a bias for finding a cure? What would it be like, do you think, if we taught all children how to think with resilience, to behave on purpose? Now, for me, that's a no-brainer, as Paul talked about before. When you find your passion, I could stand here and talk forever about it. It is such an important, I believe, such an important thing. And I ask you the question, what do you think our society, do you think that we could benefit? I'd like to think that we can. So thank you for your time this afternoon. We'll be around all day. I'd be delighted to talk to you.